Good afternoon, N4A. My name is Marisol Quiroz, and I am currently serving as Region 5 Director. We are so excited to have you all here. On behalf of the N4A, its leadership and community, I would like to welcome our participants to today's webinar. This webinar serves as our December installment of our 2021-2022 webinar series. Our session today is entitled Mental Health and Self-Care Strategies for College Athletics Professionals. And as we know, at the end of a fall semester or quarter, we could all use some more strategies. Before I introduce our presenters, I wanted to take a moment to remind participants that we will host a question and answer session at the conclusion of the presentation. Please feel free to use the Q&A feature throughout the course of the webinar to propose questions for our presenters. At this time, I am excited to announce our presenters. All of our panelists today have been working in athletics for over 15 years. Their experience has been in the areas of academic support services, student athlete development, mental performance coaching, and diversity and inclusion. Each of them are very passionate about mental health and self-care, and for this reason, they wanted to share their knowledge and experiences with other college athlete professionals in hopes that you will leave today's session feeling empowered to take better care of yourselves and each other. So from here, Raina, I'm happy to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Marisol. I'm really excited to be here today along with my colleagues to continue the conversation about an extremely important topic, mental health and self-care. And today we're specifically going to discuss strategies for college athletic professionals. And as Marisol shared our backgrounds, within academic support, student athlete development, mental performance, and diversity and inclusion, we really hope that our knowledge and experiences across the college and corporate landscape will allow us to be able to serve as a resource to you all. So I'm not going to read our bios verbatim, but we wanted to share this slide as an opportunity to give you a little bit of background on each of us. So I'm excited to be here with my colleagues, Kristen, Rashana, and Tommy. And if we think about today's presentation as a roadmap, we're really going to start our journey by being introspective. We're going to help you identify and assess your stressors, learn how to protect your energy. And next, we will look at how you can increase effectiveness with job performance and within your department by identifying strategies to create a supportive, collaborative, and inclusive environment, as well as creating how you can create programming that can better help fulfill your needs and mission of your department. And finally, we want to help you take your leadership to the next level for not just yourself, but also your department by building strategies and programs from a creative space that allow you to be innovative within the market and also elevate your job performance through focus and self-regulation. And along the way, we are going to share some personal strategies related to our own career paths towards leadership. And we want to make sure to provide time for questions at the end of our presentation. And the goal of today's program is really to identify areas for personal growth, as well as the importance of including these strategies into optimal performance.
So as Raina mentioned, we're starting with introspection. So let's think about yourself for a second and just kind of take the scenario of, your daily life, working with your boss, and maybe sometimes you get feedback that's not ideal. Okay, so that's going to be our scenario to kind of compare what you see in front of you. This graph is pretty much defining 3 different states. The middle state is pure passion. Okay, so when you think about being around people that that you feel safe around, that understand you, you're just in a very fluid, creative, aligned state. So in any of those boxes, you would be able to write down how you feel in those moments, also how your behaviors are in those moments. Then, as soon as we're triggered, we usually go to the right or the left, more so to an anxious self or to paralysis of self. Okay, so if we go back to that scenario of your boss giving you feedback that may not be ideal, you're going to default to one or the other. Your body usually has a visceral response. If you think about a body scan from the head, all the way down, you might feel like you have a heavy head. Your thoughts might feel just super disorganized. Shoulders might feel tense, little frog in your throat, chest might get warm. Same thing with your diaphragm or your stomach. So if you're defaulting to an anxious self when you get triggered, and I'll use myself as an example, for me, that means I start overdoing, right? So too many tasks. The to-do list goes from like 5 to 30. My language may not be organized or thoughtful. And then from a visceral body standpoint, I think my head would feel busy, but then I usually would have a feeling in like my diaphragm that would maybe be a little bit more like hot or tight. And that's working through, the fear and trying to prove self because of the feedback that came in. The opposite in terms of paralysis for self, and I'll use myself as an example again, is when I'm there in paralysis of self, that means I don't have an understanding of how I'm actually feeling. So I got triggered, but I don't know how I'm feeling. Therefore, nothing really is getting done. That's a need to pause. That's a need to understand where self is in order to actually move through, what's been triggered. But paralysis of self for most people just means that you're not moving forward and you feel stuck. So it might kind of feel like a hamster on a wheel. You're just not going anywhere. You're not sure where to go. So at any point, you can write down, and actually this would be great in the chat. When you're in, let's choose the anxious self, right? What are some of those behaviors or characteristics that you exude when you get triggered? And so you can include those in the chat. But the importance of this is that as we are going through our daily lives, if we stay in that zone of pure passion, we're that much more effective in our communication. We feel more balanced and we're moving forward in a way that's actually aligned with our goals. Once we get triggered, that can change, and we might enter conversations in a way that's not our true self. And so you want to make sure that you're trying to show up as authentically as possible. And so from an introspective standpoint, we always want to be conscious of where we are in terms of our state of emotional and psychological being. And as soon as we can get back to that place of pure passion, that's where we're most effective. Is this one Kristen?
Yes, I just can't start my video. Can you stop yours for me?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm still trying to start mine at the time.
We can probably talk through it in the meantime.
Okay, no problem. So I'll just continue on. So thank you so much. If you guys have put anything in the chat as it relates to how you guys respond to stress, I really appreciate that. Rest and relaxation work hand in hand, and so it's not mutually exclusive to one another. So it's important that we invest time in both rest and relaxation in order to optimize our mental and physical health. It's really important that we know our stress triggers, and that way we can identify when we need rest, relaxation, and recovery. You guys want to look over to the graphic, you'll see that stress can affect us in all aspects of our life, and no part of our body is immune. So one of the things to kind of highlight is to kind of look at these and identify some of the ones that you recognize when you're in high stress times, and also what others might be referencing to you or would be sharing with you about your behavior in the event that you're stressed out. So some of the ones I want to highlight are physical, might be headaches and sickness. Mental might be memory and some concentration problems, maybe some fogginess. Emotional could be you're overwhelmed, you're depressed, you might be irritable. And behavioral might be insomnia and mood swings. So it's really important to you kind of identify these. And like I said, sometimes the people around us can be the best people to let us know that our behavior has shifted. And it's a good time to kind of stop and think about what's going on with me. On a personal note, I haven't really shared this with any people, except for a lot of my close friends and mentors, but I'm sharing this from a place of warning. I was a person who very much loved my job and would do anything for the student athletes I worked for, but almost to a fault. I came across a point in my career where I ignored a lot of my triggers. They started off as just daily headaches, and I thought nothing of it. And then I was in pain for long periods of time. Then I was having some insomnia issues. Then we all know when we are not sleeping, that our body starts shutting down, which is what happened to me. And it ended up just being a full domino effect. I went from not sleeping to complete exhaustion, being sick all the time, not being able to come into work. I had very high at 33. I was told that I had really high blood pressure, and that actually led me to passing out at work. And ultimately, I was written out of work twice. I had to go on FMLA, the first time for 1 month, the second time to not return to work. And ultimately, it took me about 6 months for me to get myself back to my original state. And so even though I was quote unquote functional at work and doing everything to complete my job, my body was just ultimately, it just told me that I needed rest and recovery, and I didn't listen. And so I really want people to take some of the time to really identify some of these triggers, don't ignore them, and really know when you need to stop and take a break.
So it's really important that we do, as Kristen talked about, where you're able to really protect your energy. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things that you can do to protect your energy. And so it's important because we often don't talk about how to protect your mental energy. We come across a lot of people in a lot of different situations day by day, and being mindful of how it can affect us and knowing how to protect our energy from their negativity can really help us work through the challenges of each day. And I love this quote that's on the side here that says, "Your energy is your responsibility. Do what you need to do to protect it." So we're going to go over a couple of practices that you can do to help protect your energy. The first one is set an intention. And what we mean by this is be mindful about starting your day off and anticipating and mentally preparing for the day. And so for me, one of the things I like to do with this practice is I usually am doing this while I'm at the gym working out, trying to distract myself while I'm on the treadmill, is really to think about what are the tasks that I need to get done for today? What are the meetings that I have and the topics that will be covered during those meetings? What student athletes would I've been meeting with? Am I in season or out of season with the student athletes that I'm working with? Is it a travel day? Is it a game day? Because all of these various elements really play to how I'm going to prepare for the day and what to possibly anticipate in terms of some students are really great in season and really focused on the work that they need to do. And some are not as focused in the off season. So am I going to have to deal with the student that has a really bad attitude or is not motivated to do any work at this time because they feel like because I'm out of season, I have more time. And so I don't necessarily have that sense of urgency. So being able to be intentional about preparing and anticipating for your day is really going to help you to protect your energy. Next is to focus on what you can control. Control what you can control. I always say control the controllables. If you can't control it, if it's outside of your control, do the best you can with how you respond to those situations and those individuals and keep it moving. The next step is to tune into how you feel. And this is really important because you want to make sure that you have an awareness of how you're feeling. So for example, if you're heading into work and for some reason the commute takes maybe a half an hour longer than what it normally takes, and now you're frustrated, having that awareness that you're frustrated because of the commute is a great place to start and really how to protect your energy. So because you're frustrated, maybe you sit in the car for 5 minutes, listen to your favorite song or something that kind of just go through some breathing exercises to help you kind of regroup and start your day. So that way you're not taking your frustration out on those that you're getting ready to interact with. Also, make sure that you protect your peace is another step. And so this is really important to protect your peace. And really what I mean by protecting your peace is that you're able to really be mindful of any negative energy or negative moods that other individuals around you have, and making sure that it doesn't affect your mood and your energy. The next step is to set boundaries. And setting boundaries is great, but you also have to make sure that you're intentional to execute on really holding firm on those boundaries that you have set. The next step is to build a solid social circle. And for me, this means, who is your tribe? And for me, my tribe are those that are going to tell me the hard truths, tell me what I need to hear and not just what I want to hear. It's also that my tribe is also going to be able to encourage me, empower me, protect me, support me. But like I said, also, they will also be able to tell me the hard truths and tell me what I need to hear and not just what I want to hear.
Sorry guys, my video is not working again, so I'm just gonna keep chucking along. Along with protecting your energy, it's really important to learn how to balance your input and output. And like Tommy said, we come across a lot of people in a lot of situations every single day. So it's important for us to have strategies in our toolbox that can help us calm our mind and body and deal with stress. So while at work, some quick strategies for balancing and calming the mind and body could be taking a walk, could be stopping, getting a healthy snack, a drink of water, could be reading a chapter in a book, it could be listening to music, could be getting the body moving again by doing chair yoga if you can't get outside, or getting some fresh air. And I really encourage you to take these 10 to 15-minute breaks throughout the day to fill your cup. And this is something that I really recognize you have to be very self-disciplined on, and you really need to be able to plan these. So I definitely suggest that everyone set reminders in your calendar, in your phone, to be able to know when you need to take these breaks. And that goes back to what Tommy was saying about setting intention. Looking at your day, evaluating what you have going on. And when you see these little windows of time, taking them would be really important. And then when it comes to after work, I suggest having a post-work routine to help unwind and de-stress. Some of us are really, really good at this, and a lot of us are not. We don't have a way to kind of come home and kind of debrief from the day. So some effective strategies for balancing and calming the mind at home could be journaling if you're someone that really likes to write, taking a bath. Physical activity is always a thumbs up in terms of just kind of relieving some of the stresses we deal through throughout the day. Talking to friends and family, and then something like meditation or yoga at home could be really good with calming. One of the things with this is that this is something that I would absolutely tell everyone to make a priority. If you're looking at yourself right now and you're just like, I do not have a routine, I come home, I go straight to the kids, my wife, my husband, my family, and you don't have to take moments for you, I would definitely try to find an activity and make sure that it's authentic to you. So we don't necessarily suggest you need to go work out right after work. Some people want to do that in the morning, but it's definitely important that you find something that you really believe could really help calm you and implement that in and have a cadence for that as well. I definitely know that when I'm saying taking breaks during the day, everyone's like, Kristen, I don't have 10 to 15 minutes. The reality of the matter is, if you can build these in and it's as a priority and your self-care as a priority, they will help you in the long run better deal with stress. So think about short-term sacrifice, long-term gains. One of these, and then see if you can get up to 3. And if it's just 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes, but try to kind of give yourself a break. It's good for the mind and the body.
Oh, Tommy, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So as Kristen was talking about, you want to be effective with your input and your output. And so part of that is going to be making sure that you're aware of when you're proactive versus reactive. And you really want to try to stay in that proactive state. And at the top of the slide there, we have a great quote by John C. Maxwell. And it talks about, I believe everyone chooses how to approach life. If you're proactive, you're focusing on preparing. If you're reactive, you end up focusing on repairing. And so to the point of the quote, we really want to make sure that we are preparing, and that's our focus, is to stay in a proactive state. Sorry if you guys hear the, I got lawnmowers and people doing the yard next to me. So sorry if you hear that noise. But some of the strategies that you can use to stay in a proactive state is to schedule rest and recovery days ahead of time. 2 to 3 days out of each quarter would be really great to do. And this is something that I was really horrible at doing when I first started my career. And people in my tribe, including Kristen, really stayed on me, encouraged me to really implement putting in and planning days ahead, because I would not do that. I would really wait till the holiday would come, and I would do maybe a day before the holiday or a day after the holiday, and just kind of, okay, this is what it's going to be based on the teams that I was working with. It was always in season, out of season for one or the other. And so for me, a lot of it, I didn't put an importance on my own rest and recovery time. And then once I actually implemented what my tribe was telling me, it made work so much more productive for me. And it's, for me, I'm a visual learner. So for me, it's like you keep going to the gas station and just filling your car up halfway, instead of going to the gas station, filling your car up completely. And so for me, that's what I had been doing in that. The next thing is to make sure that you trust your gut, listen to your instincts, and know your limits. And the only time I've ever regretted this is when I didn't trust my gut, didn't listen to my instincts, and didn't know my limits. And so really make sure that you are mindful of these situations and pay attention to them, especially in high stress situations that we encounter a lot in college athletics. The next is to be honest about who or what isn't good for you. And this is one of those things where you really have to be honest with yourself. I call it looking in the mirror. That's the type of introspection you have to have with this one, to really identify, okay, this is not good for me. This is not working out well for me. Or when I'm around this person, they always seem to put me in a funky mood, or a mood that's negative or drains my energy. So you really need to be mindful of that. And some people like that are in, I call them the negative Nancys, you work with. So, maximize your time while you're working with them. And then when you completed that task and that work that needs to be done with them, move on to really protect yourself and stay in that proactive state. Next, know when you need a break and take it. Once again, I was horrible at this at the beginning. So this is something that I had to work at and getting better at. And once I learned that I needed to take a break and not try to push through everything, things became so much better for me, not just in work, but also mentally and physically. And for me, one of the things I realized when I didn't take the breaks that I needed, I would tend to eat more unhealthy foods. And so there was a point where I would go to a fast food restaurant and get the apple pies and the French fries all the time. And that was my way of trying to cope with ignoring the fact that I needed a break. The next thing is to be okay with saying no or asking for help. It's a sign of strength to know how to say no and when to say no, but also of asking for help. So these are some of the strategies that you can use to be proactive.
Thanks, Tommy. And I just want to recognize Jack for saying the importance of scheduling rest and recovery. And hopefully we'll all get a chance to do this a little bit over the winter break, but we all know how important that is. And Tommy, you talked a little bit about a tribe, and hopefully, we all have a tribe of people that support us. And hopefully some of those folks are on the call today and within the N4A organization. So I want to talk about, I want to move from looking introspectively to discussing strategies to improve performance in your workplace, and really how can you support diverse professionals specifically. And I'd love for folks to maybe share in the chat, what are some of those things that are pushing against you, things that are not in your job description, outside forces that are impacting your day-to-day responsibilities. If you can share those in the chat, I think that would really be helpful as we continue our conversation today. I know for me, it's just balancing family, being healthy, all of those things. I mean, those are not in my job description, but those are forces that are definitely impacting me and what I do each day. Maybe some of you are thinking like work-life balance, mental health. I mean, obviously that's what we're talking about today. Finances, family, health, COVID, we're still in a pandemic, we're still battling, not battling, we are still trying to manage how to move forward in this new normal. But when you add those professional responsibilities, supporting student athletes, coaches, administrators, it really can be overwhelming. If you had a chance to tune into the MOA webinar that was last month with Dr. Kwaku Smith and Candace Abelard, it was entitled Burnout, Challenges and Self-Care Solutions. You heard them discuss how challenging this past year has been for athletic administrators and particularly administrators of color. And, if you identify, Jack D and I work for campus and community, right? So if you identify as an underrepresented minority within this position, maybe you felt the emotional toll kind of at a greater extent or felt uncomfortable sharing your feelings with colleagues. Maybe also being responsible for the brunt of DE&I work at a greater level, even greater than your colleagues that you consider allies. And Paige, you mentioned that as well, DE&I work as well as work-life balance. Thanks for sharing. I know personally, when I look back at the past 18 months, especially thinking about like May, June, July of last year, I really felt like I wasn't in a space where I was allowed to show, how I was feeling at work, kind of addressing the social and racial injustices that were highlighted across the country and how they were impacting me. But I was really grateful to have a group of coworkers that I felt I could lean on and, show their compassion, but also with colleagues across the country that I knew were going through some of the same things. And so I want to be able to talk about some strategies for you all to provide support to your diverse colleagues. So the first strategy is to listen, really focusing on how you can amplify the voices and experiences of your colleagues by creating opportunities to be able to listen and learn about their experiences. And so what does this look like? It looks like normalizing, talking openly about experiences, really paying particular attention to listening and affirming experiences that focus on bridging race, ethnicity, and gender. Also participating in diversity, inclusion, education, and diversity and inclusion and belonging opportunities sponsored by your department or your university. And really not just on a one and done basis. I mean, your colleagues that are underrepresented, they know if you're trying to check a box or if you're really truly committed to educating yourself and to serving them. Hold conversations or focus groups with leaders and employees to find out about their experiences, what works, what doesn't work. And if you have ERGs or emotional resource groups on campus or within your organization, those are great ways that you can connect with folks and try to learn about their experiences. And so really, if you're willing to stand, in support of and alongside your colleagues, make sure you make the point to listen to their experiences. Next, learn how things are going, how your colleagues are feeling. In 2018, a Catalyst report by Danica J. Travis and Jennifer Thorpe Moscon examined the emotional tax that Asian, Black, Latinx, and multiracial professionals pay at work when they feel they must be on guard to protect against racial and gender bias. And the report also stated that employees who feel on guard are most likely to want to leave their employers and face challenges to their well-being. So I think it's important to take note of the day-to-day experiences that foster inclusion and exclusion as well, and evaluate whether your organization's culture is inhibiting experiences of inclusion across all groups. So again, holding conversations with colleagues, and this could even mean doing it in a space where folks might feel more comfortable. So that might not be in the workplace. Maybe it's, getting coffee before work or or having dinner after work, creating a space that is going to allow your colleagues who are underrepresented to feel most comfortable to share and allow you to learn about their experiences. Another way to learn about the experiences of diverse professionals is utilizing surveys. I know that's really popular, just to be able to do a climate assessment or kind of get the pulse of an organization. And so I'd recommend, if you haven't already done that, to use that as a tool to be able to learn about experiences. And if there's an opportunity to have anonymous piece where people can really feel like they're giving honest feedback. Next is to leverage. So leverage your position. And by position, I mean your role within the organization, and leverage your platform. So that's your reach. Who's in your network? Who are the people that you impact? Leverage your place. So your physical location, who do you connect with on a daily basis? And then also leverage your privilege. What are the advantages that are available to you as a member of a particular group? And so whether you're in a leadership role or not, you have the ability to make an impact on your workplace culture and to create a supportive and collaborative and inclusive environment. And then last is lead. And so really look to ensure that leaders and employees are supported and held accountable for inclusive leadership behavior. So modeling inclusive behavior. I put this photo up here. This is outside of my office at Virginia Tech. And so it's almost like, tell me you're an ally without telling me you're an ally. So this is just a way to model inclusive behavior, to show that, I want to be able to have a space and create a space in my environment where folks can feel like can bring their whole self. And the next thing is really encouraging employees to take advantage of mental health resources. So if you have an employee assistance program within human resources, or even taking a mental health day, like when my staff comes to me and say, I need to take a mental health day, great. You're not going to find me saying no to that. I mean, I really encourage that. And then also modeling that for your employees. Really, leadership begins at the top. So, are the individuals who make up your department's leadership team taking an active role in promoting an inclusive workplace and celebrating the diversity of your department? I think that's an important question to be able to ask yourself. Also, who's at the table when decisions are being made and you look around, what does that look like? Is there representation there? And then lastly, evaluating and updating your policies and practices. What does your strategic plan look like? What do the hiring practices look like? Things like that. So I put a quote up there. It says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really think that's important. And it's another way that you can show that you're supporting diverse professionals.
So we're going to talk a little bit about building strategies for programs for self-development within individually, department, and throughout the organization. And this quote at the top by Walt Disney really sums up college athletics. Times and conditions change so rapidly that we must keep our aim constantly focused on the future. And even prior to the pandemic, college athletics is a field that is always constantly changing, very fast paced. And then with the pandemic, even more changes have come up within the pandemic now. So it's really important that we make sure that we pay attention to our surroundings and the shifting culture of college athletics. It's also important that we assess areas for growth and identify innovative strategies and programming that can help fulfill the needs and the mission and our performance. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we have two former NBA basketball players, Michael Jordan and Harold Miner. And if we wanted to know a little bit more about basketball and talk with either one of them about some pointers that they could give us to improve our game of basketball, and you had the option, who would you choose? I would choose Mike Jordan, the greatest of all time, or if you're not in that camp, one of the best players of all time. And part of that is the reason why I would choose him is because of the way that he played the game, the level that he played the game, and how well he did. And part of that was because he was a student of his craft, allowed him to play the game at such a high level to be regarded the way he is being regarded nowadays. So it's really important for you to make sure that you're a student of your craft. If you're not a student of your craft, it will be more and don't do your job well, it'd be more challenging to get stakeholders to champion your ideals and strategies and programs and to properly address the mental health needs that you see on an individual or department or organizational level. The next step is to be curious. By being curious, you're able to gather more information that's going to allow you to have a better understanding of the different challenges and threats and needs that you have, like I said, once again, on an individual, on a departmental and an organizational level. And that's really important. The next step is to ask the questions why or why not. And this is really important because asking these questions creates a greater awareness and helping to better anticipate some of the challenges or questions that may lead to increased chances to build an inclusive programming. For example, some of the questions that you may ask about is the budget. Why is the budget this way, or why do we not have a budget for some of these programs? Who's in authority in terms of signing off for these programs and these strategies to be implemented? Have we properly assessed the needs for these type of strategies and programs in our departments? And what is the timeline to effectively implement these programs? The next step is to know and use your resources. And if you use the previous 3 steps, this step really, the work has already been done for you. You will know your resources and how to use them, whether your resources are in-house, whether it's on campus, or it's through organizations that specialize in the areas that you see that are of need, whether on an individual basis, on a departmental basis, or an organizational basis. Next slide, please. At the top of this slide, there's a quote that really highlights, that the holiday shouldn't be a time for you to recharge, but a time to celebrate. And as I mentioned earlier, I was horrible at this. I used the holiday to recharge because I had spent all that I had and didn't properly take care of my wellness, my mental health and wellness. I didn't have that as a priority. So with you guys, I'm hoping this is part of some of the strategies that you will use to be able to celebrate and not just recharge over this holiday break. You all work in roles that require a lot of time and energy and efficiency to ensure effective support for student athletes. It's important that you remember that you need support too, that you receive the support too. And for me, this really reminds me of what you hear right before you take off, that the flight attendants tell you. Put on your mask first before you help someone else put their mask on. So this is a point that's really important, is that you make sure that you get the support that you need to have a great mental wellness and self-care. Don't be like I was early in my career, where that was not one of my priorities. Lightfield Consulting Group did a white paper, and from this white paper, it highlighted that departments and organizations that focused on diversity, inclusion, mental wellness were much more profitable and were much more innovative than their competitors that chose not to focus in these 3 areas. So anything that you see in terms of a need that you may see individually or for your department or throughout the organization, definitely talk with others and really work to bring about these type of changes that will address the needs, whether through the strategies or through programming, because it's going to really make your organization that much better.
And I know that we've shared a lot of strategies and a lot of things. You guys are going to walk away and just think, what can I do with all this information? And we really hope that these strategies you can apply, and you should be able to apply almost immediately. And these are sure ways to improve your focus and your self-regulation and ultimately increase your performance. And not just for yourself, but for your department. And the graphic here really is simple. It's basically an increase in focus plus an increase in self-regulation, ability to self-regulate, can increase your performance. And when we talk about increasing your focus, that's minimizing these distractions and staying on task. Easier said than done. So a lot of what I'm going to share is a lot of checks and balances. So it might lend you to kind of evaluate how well you're doing in these areas. Complete your high level tasks first. We have a lot of stuff that we're given every single day. So it's really important for us to look and, like Tommy had said before, plan ahead and evaluate kind of what your day's looking like and make decisions based on that. We all know as we kind of check out some of the high priority items, we can feel better throughout the day. Set a time to refocus. We talked about those breaks, which will be integral in kind of helping your mind and body. Keep your workplace organized and clean. I know this is not something that we feel like we want to spend time on, but I would definitely say once a week, try to just look around and see what can I do to kind of make the space clean and organized. Definitely a clean space can help you feel and less cluttered, can help your mind feel less cluttered as well. Find a routine that works for you. And so I know we've shared a lot of things with you, but it's really important and we want you guys to be authentic to yourselves. So just because what we've shared and things that we've done work for us doesn't always mean they're going to work for you, but it would be good for you to just evaluate and analyze what could I include and at least give it a try. Communicate your work policies. And for a lot of us, we don't really do that. So that's really going back to setting some of the boundaries and letting the people around us, not only just our coworkers, but our students, know our boundaries. So if you're a person that needs to come in and get your coffee and take a breather and read your emails before you get started, make sure you're communicating that. If you're a person that likes to leave from 12 to 1 to go work out and take your lunch break, you should articulate that to people. If you're an individual that needs to leave at 5 o'clock because you have to go pick up your child or anything like that, you need to let people know that, as well as in the evening. You know, a lot of us I know are probably checking emails at all times of night, but if you're a person that really wants to check out and be able to focus on your family and spend time with them, then that's something that you would need to articulate and share outwardly to people around you. Increasing self-regulation. So these are the behaviors that, help modify our stress response or stressors. And so if you're able to do these, you'll have a better job self-regulating. So recovery, we've talked about this, which is low. This helps lower your personal stress and levels during your downtime. So if you're doing a better job outside of work recovering, your ability to self-regulate is going to go up. When it comes to job crafting, these are those proactive adjustments to the tasks during the day, the relationships around you, your cognitions, that'll help make work less stressful. Okay, so I say this because there's a lot of times that we need to stop and reevaluate if what we've always done is working for us now. So for some of you individuals that are 10, 15 years in the business and what you've been doing has worked for you, I still would want you to stop and think about, has my performance decreased over time? And is there a reason for that? And if it has, you might want to look into, how do I increase my focus and my self-regulation? For your individuals that are newer in the field, I would definitely encourage you to evaluate and think about what are the things you want to be able to put in place to be able to checks and balances system. Just sometimes we get so used to being in a routine that the routine sometimes needs to be refreshed. So I would definitely quarterly, twice a year, think about, reflect back on the last couple of months and think about how did I do? And if you did well and your performance has been great, wonderful. If you feel like you're decreasing the performance in certain areas, evaluating why and making simple adjustments can make a big difference.
So one of the nuances that Kristen was just mentioning in the tools that she was just sharing has to do with communication, right? So depending on where you are, you need to make sure you communicate. And I think you've observed within your careers that those who are effective communicators are able to go quite far because they can communicate where they are, but then they also have this ability to bring groups together and to inspire people. So when we think about communication, it's threading the needle of empowering self and career through communication. The first thing is know your audience, right? So whenever you're speaking to someone, understand who you're talking to. Like, you have been around each other enough and have picked up certain nuances, I'm sure, in certain meetings where you understand personality types, right? And what inspires people, what makes them tick. So utilizing that information can make you more effective because you are tailoring your message when you're speaking to that individual so that there's more of a relational communication. The second is utilizing I statements, but doing so as a team player. So just because you are feeling a certain way You don't want to project that onto the entire team. And also it makes it personal when you're able to communicate how you specifically feel. It also takes the responsibility off of the party that you're speaking to so that they understand that this is personal to you in terms of how you feel or what it is that you need. Third, strategic transparency. I tend to not just put transparency down there, but also say strategic, because you want to understand that what you are sharing has a consequence, right? So being transparent is very important because it allows people to understand the truth and authenticity of who you are. At the same time, there is a consequence to what it is that you communicate. So understanding what that is and tailoring it to the outcome that you're looking for is very important. Next is ask questions, right? We want to understand the other people that we're involved with on a daily basis. And by asking questions, you can get to learn a lot more about people. And it lets them know that you're interested in understanding them and not only sharing about self. The next is utilizing empathy, right? Understanding where someone is coming from, putting yourself in their shoes is also going to increase your ability to understand the organization in general, but then also to broaden your own perspectives on, different methods that might work outside of what you're used to defaulting to. And last is just human connection. And that's just a really broad one, right? When it comes to communication and your career and working with others, finding a way to connect is essential. It's very easy for us to default to how we're different and how our perspectives keep us further apart. But the reality is when you understand that human connection, we're all so similar. And it's like the tiniest things that make us a little bit different. So if you can put that aside for a second and understand where you connect, you can move forward much more effectively. So with this last one, all of us kind of picked our top 3 themes of what helped us move our careers forward in leadership. So we're all going to share, and I'll start. So first and foremost, I would say jump, right? Like if there's something that you're going after, it's really easy to get in your head and spend so much time trying to strategize how to get there. Is strategy important? Yes. Sometimes we can go into paralysis by not just taking the jump because we don't have faith that we can step into that next chapter. Once you jump, you got to figure it out. So I say jump, and you will 100% figure out everything else that you need to know once you get there. Also, remaining true to self, super important. This allows you to remain in spaces that are aligned with your desires, with your passions, etc. If you're not true to self and you sacrifice what your values are, what your morals are, and what you actually believe in, you can end up in jobs where you're really unhappy. And then the last is to dream. Sometimes fears and doubts will hold us back from doing this, but when you do dream, oftentimes this is just a lens into what you are actually able to accomplish. So continuing to dream, even when you've hit that next chapter that you define, will keep you moving forward. And I think you'll end up impressing yourself at some point because you'll realize, wow, I actually was able to accomplish this and move forward into something that maybe seemed out of reach at some point. So continue to dream.
So mine are integrity, gratitude, and connection. And I really believe that a lot of these were integrated into my life at a very early stage in my career. Integrity, I say that first. I know a lot of us know that we lost Jim Pignataro earlier this year. And one of the things as my first director when I was at Michigan State, was taking his class, was him talking about characters doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And I really try to apply that in every aspect of my life. And it's not always popular in the sense that sometimes when you have integrity, you're going to be questioning some of the things that are going on around you, and that might be seen as you going against the grain. But it's always been important to me in leadership that I demonstrate what I preach. And so I want to be able to come home every single day and look in the mirror and be proud of what I've done, and know that I am fulfilling the mission. And so for me, that's always just been something I have found through leadership has really been helpful. And I've seen that people recognize that in me. I'm quote unquote seen as the rule follower. and I'm a very policy and procedure person. And I think that just comes from initially just, having great mentors and leadership around me when I started off in the business. Gratitude is another thing. I don't think we tend to pay attention to the people around us that really keep us afloat. I got, on this panel, I have two people, some of my best friends in the world, who have literally helped me through some of the darkest times and tough times, but then continue to be champions for me when I'm doing a great job, and I don't think I am. There's also some other individuals on this call. Shout out Ashton, and I'll definitely shout out Elliot Daniels, who was really my first, Elliot was my first supervisor when I was a mentor. And I think showing appreciation for the people that came before you, that supported you, that gave you a shot, is really important. And as you continue to, move up the ranks, make sure that you're checking back in with those people, you're showing your appreciation. And I think day to day, you can all benefit from saying thank you to the people around you, even if it's something, the smallest gesture. There are a lot of stuff we do every single day that we're supposed to do, but it's always nice to hear those type of things. So gratitude has always been something that I really try to make a point, not even just in work, in my personal life, to show appreciation. And connection, anyone who really knows me, I'm all about relationships, and I really like to connect with people. And I think that's really a big part of why I loved what I did in athletics for so long as a learning specialist and academic counselor, is really just building a connection with the student athletes I work with, the coaches, all the support staff. And so I think in leadership, this has really helped me to understand the scope of what we're doing, understand what people do in their jobs every single day, and respecting those aspects. And sometimes recognizing that connection can really help people get over the hump. And so I encourage you to kind of lean in a little bit more to the people around you. And also, when you feel like you need the more connection, that you're also articulating that as well, because people can't read our minds. So those are my tips.
All right. So in interest of time, we want to make sure that you guys have time to ask us questions, but we just want to take a moment and thank you guys for joining us for the webinar and your participation. We also want to wish all of you guys a fun, healthy, safe holiday break, and make sure you do some rest and recovery.
Awesome. Thank you, Tommy, for taking us here to the Q&A portion, and thank you to all of our presenters. We do want to make sure, in the interest of time, that we do finish by the hour, but we did have some questions that I want to make sure to raise now. And we did have one from an attendee, and so I want to jump into that one first because I want to honor their question here. Could someone describe how it feels to be in a pure passion state?
Sure. So I know exactly what slide that was when we were talking about pure passion versus anxious self and paralysis of self. The reality is that pure passion does feel different for everyone. So for me in particular, I feel a ton of peace in this state. I feel calm in this state. I would say inspired. And then energetic as well. And that's when I know I'm just kind of working in my flow. And that's another way to think of it, right? Like, so for any of you who played sports, you know what a flow state is. It's very similar to that. So I encourage all of you to know what that looks like so that you can identify when you're not in it. And again, I don't think the expectation is that you stay in it 24/7. That's super unrealistic as a human, but just knowing self alone can help you, I would say, experience that state more often.
Great, thank you so much. We do have another question that just came through, and it's a great one. When you haven't communicated healthy work boundaries, how do you go about communicating that moving forward, especially with your leadership?
I can answer this one. I think first and foremost, it's important for you to definitely write down your thoughts and ideas about how you're feeling and how you're not having healthy work boundaries, how it's affecting you. So then there's a tie in there. And I think it's really important to, when you're communicating, really letting people know what your boundaries are and why. And so sometimes if you can give examples of why, checking email all parts of the night is affecting some of your, ability to spend time with family and recover. And sometimes it is going to be finding a healthy medium, right? Because and sometimes, depending on what teams we're working with and what our role is, there's going to be some times of the year where we're working a little bit more. But I think understanding your boundaries and why is really important. Setting up meetings and explaining why, and kind of elaborating enough for people to really get the inner part of it, instead of just saying like, I don't want to talk to anyone after 5 o'clock. Well, that's not necessarily going to be the most receptive. So talking about, like Rashana said, I statements, this is how I'm feeling when I'm working around the clock, adjusting your schedule. I know sometimes with some programs are doing flex scheduling and an ability to kind of be adjusting to people's schedules. But I think if you haven't communicated, I definitely encourage people to do so. And hopefully this will be, go back to some of the strategies and be able to see how can you go about this in a way where you're not, pointing outwards like, work is making me feel this type of way, but you're just talking more inwardly about how things are affecting you and how you want to be an effective employee and you want to be your best self. And sometimes what that means is really advocating for yourself in terms of your rest and recovery.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. I think that will be our last question for the session. Again, thank you to all of our panelists. You did an awesome job. And I so appreciated hearing all of your different experiences. And I see in the chat that everyone else does as well. On behalf of N4A and its leadership, thank you to our group for taking the time, and for all of our attendees for taking the time to attend today's session. That concludes our presentation. Please have a great day and the rest of the ends to your terms. And please, as we've learned, take some time to celebrate, right, Tommy? Celebrate during this holiday season. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.